So Scott, how seriously are you guys taking the next couple of weeks in terms of the NAB Cup? Different clubs seem to have different approaches.
Oh, look, I think it'd be fair to say most clubs in NAB 1 and NAB 2, there's still a strong development focus. You still want to expose players, younger players, and some players who are potentially on the fringe, trying to challenge for selection. So that's a key part of it. But as you move through the NAB campaign, by the time you get to probably NAB 3 and 4, you're getting a lot closer to the side that you want on the park for round 1. So I guess the focus slightly shifts over the 4 games. So we'll still have a number of younger players out there this weekend. We're able to bring back in Sean Dempster, Sam Fisher, Reece Stanley. They'll all come in for modified game time this week as best we can modify it within the 80 rotations using the 3 subs. And there'll probably be 8 or 9 players that we would consider in our best side that won't play this week. So it's balancing the load over the 4 games.
So Riewoldt, Hayes, Schneider, they're the ones that will miss out this week?
They're 3 of. I guess 3 of the players that won't play this week. Most of those players will be available for NAB 3 and 4.
So there was no concern with any of them? It's really just part of their program, what you expected?
No, Nick's going extremely well. Adam Schneider's been coming off a modified program, so he's probably a little bit more delayed from that point of view. But generally those players are tracking well and on course with where we want them to be.
Did you get a good reaction from the ruck and midfielders about the change of rule there from last week? Did the girls get an opportunity to really test it out, the trial rule?
Look, I think the best thing that happened over the course of the last week or so was the AFL's adjustment to the subs. To actually allow us 3 subs, I think was it was a decision for common sense, which just enables us that opportunity to protect our players. I mean, when you have players coming back into their first game off their pre-season, it's a big jump to go into 80 rotations and 1 sub. So the 3 subs will allow us to, give some modified game time. That's certainly going to be the challenge of this weekend.
Is it almost hard in a way to get a read on your guys, just given the conditions in Adelaide were so brutal and you had such a young side?
Well, it might be harder for you guys to get a read on it. But look, reflecting back a couple of weeks ago, there were probably 7 or 8 younger players in the first game, and there were probably 14 in the second game. Whilst the heat was discussed and the triangular format was discussed, there were a lot of things we were happy about from a performance point of view. And I guess on top of that, the exposure to a lot of those players was what we wanted out of that first round.
Just listen to Ben McAvoy on the way here, mate. He talked about an understanding that the external expectations probably aren't that high for the season ahead. What can you achieve this season?
What can we achieve? Look, I'm not one that really wants to put limitations or measurements or make predictions. We're focused on our training. I'm certainly not going to tie the club to any predictions one way or the other at this point. What we need to do is focus on our training, focus on our development, make sure out of our senior group we get their absolute best, fast track as many younger players as we can. If we do that, then we're doing the right thing by this football club. So we'll stay on that course and we'll see where the chips fall.
Always nice to tie up the young kids, and Jack Stevens re-signed. That's a beauty for you guys.
He's a great story, Jack. Really well liked around the club, but he's maturing as a person around this club. So his stature's growing. He's going to be a key midfield component for a number of years. He's 22 years of age, and probably our most professional trainer. Won our most professional training award up until Christmas, which was presented whilst we were in Colorado. So his professionalism and maturity starting to come through now as a 22-year-old is fantastic.
Scott Riewoldt and Hayes, is one game enough for them leading into the season proper, or would you guys play an intra-club in the week before?
Yeah, there's still NAB 3 and 4.
Yeah.
And there's
but
also...
they won't play this weekend, is that right?
No, which is NAB 2. So they'll potentially play 3 and 4. And then obviously there's still a bye weekend leading in, and we'll see where they're at that point. But look, certainly on track for 3 and 4.
Scott, I guess it was only a matter of time before Jason Graham came out and had his say. He says he didn't deserve to be sacked. We have to ask, obviously, what your reaction to that comment is.
Oh, look, I think it's, it's tough. It's a tough decision on a player that we would have you know, my preference was that he's still here, and that he'd been able to work through some of the challenges that he was facing, and react to, I guess, the guidelines that were set in front of him over 16 months. So, you know, I don't want to grandstand on the disappointment, you know, of Jason and his position now. He gave a lot to this club over a long period of time. There's a level of disappointment that he's not here, but ultimately the right decision was made for this football club and for this football team. And the right level of support was offered to Grammy and continues to be offered to Grammy going forward. So I rest pretty comfortable with ultimately what was a tough decision.
And you mentioned 16 months. He had chances, didn't he? And you know, the tough decision was ultimately made. But that's a long time, 16 months, to be dealing with off-field issues, I guess.
Look, ultimately all of us you're defined by the choices that you make. You know, we tried very hard to work through the situations that Grammy was involved in. You know, when it became when it gets to a point when the Victorian Police are involved, you know, there's a gravity to that sort of situation. And we've got to protect the football club. We need to protect our players, and we need to make tough decisions based on our values. And I think we did that.
So he goes back to the country and plays footy this season and wants to get back into the AFL system. Will you consider him in 12 months' time?
He's probably not the right fit for us going forward, given our demographic. But look, I'd love to see Grammy, you know, turn it around, get back on track. And if there's a side out there that he's a talented player, so if that turned around for him, no one would be more pleased than me.
If the events of the last couple of pre-seasons, Scott, had been different, could there have been a different finish for Jason?
No, it certainly wasn't a reaction based on the history of this football club. This was a reaction based on our values and what we need to stand for as a group of players and as a club. Just pretty strong guidelines on what a player needs to do, you know, and that's we're not really going to budge from that.
Can I ask you one on Ahmed Saab? What sort of impact has the modification of his approach to goal? Has it taken long for him to get it right? And, you know, how much work's he sort of done on that?
He's now got a quicker approach.
So
That's
it was
it.
nothing really. It was just.
Obviously, every goal kicker works on their routine. He's refined it. Players are really good at adjusting to rule changes, and there was a rule change. He's made a slight modification. We move on. Fewer steps, less time. And there was probably a fair bit of space in there to trim anyway.
Yeah.
So we're comfortable with where his routine's at.
Do you ever recall watching him and just saying to yourself, geez, this is a long time? When you sort of...
Very first time I saw it was here at training. And I went in, grabbed the coffee, came back out, and he was still going through the routine. But it took us by surprise. But given the efficiency, we didn't make too many changes to it. So a minor modification, really.
Did Milne have any impact, given how long he takes, 2 steps?
Yeah, they're two very different, sort of different characters in many ways. But Milne just likes to get on with the job, and I think spends more time on his celebration. But he has been able to provide some good advice.
Cool.
Thanks,
Thanks, Scott.